All right, welcome back, everyone, to our 11 o'clock session here on Wednesday. We appreciate all you being here. This is session 7 of 9, so we're hitting the home stretch, and we're hitting the home stretch with a great group. Our Women's Leadership Council, our fastest growing, most powerful council in the PDMI, over 70 members of the Women's Council, launched last January.
80.
Fern is the chair of the Women's Council. She's a great recruiter. She's a great mentor. If you're a woman in the industry, you're not involved in the Women's Council, we urge you to get involved. They're in the middle of creating a mentoring program right now that's actually just gotten underway in the last few months. And I feel like the young members are mentoring the older members just as much as the other direction. So it's a really wonderful thing. So thank you all for being here. As always, education at PDMI East is presented by Blue Water. They have a video they'd like to share before we get started.
Familia Ramírez.
Deje el drama para las telenovelas.
Pero ahora no tengo que jugar con dolores. Me pongo Gembana y el dolor se va.
We are here today to talk about problem solving to open the ROI funnel for performance marketing. As noted, Fern Lee, the chair of our Women's Leadership Council, is the moderator of this session. Fern is the CEO of THOR Associates and is an experienced award-winning expert with a proven track record of creating brand loyalty, lead generation, and transactional revenue by utilizing brand and direct response marketing methods including DRTV production and media, digital, radio, print, retail, home shopping, and international to create a robust ROI. In 2018, Fern was proudly inducted into the Direct Response Hall of Fame, something that we may be bringing back in the near future. That was under our previous umbrella as Response Magazine, but we own the DR Hall of Fame imprint, so that may be returning. Under the THOR umbrella, Fern has opened the funnel and provided success to such clients as MetLife, AIG, Humana, Transact, Johnson & Johnson, Colonial Penn, Mars, Balsam Hill, Focus Factor, Kumon, and more. And if you don't follow THOR on LinkedIn, please do. Fern would really like that. Ladies and gentlemen, Fern Lee.
Thank you so much, sir. So, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great PDMI. We're going to jump right in. I'm going to start all the way to the end here with Shannon Ellis. So, Shannon serves as the Chief Revenue Officer at Juice Media, bringing more than 25 years of distinguished experience in the direct-to-consumer industry. Shannon excels in driving results, specializing in boosting acquisition performance and revenue to brand. So thank you for being here. Matt Kelley is the COO and head of media and analytics. He's responsible for driving innovation and ROI through intersection of people, process, and technology by maximizing the use of consumer intent signals at every touch point to deliver more relevant experiences. Prior to joining GainShare, Matt had held senior management roles at Dentsu iProspect, Leapfrog, and Leo Burnett. Racine Levy is a member of the Women's Leadership Council, so I'm so glad that you're here. Racine leads the in-house strategy and buying team at Angi as a senior director of brand media. She has more than 12 years of media experience, working with a variety of brands covering the CPG and entertainment categories. Prior to moving to Angi and bringing media buying efforts in-house, Racine worked at an agency for over 8 years. Last but not least, Michael Weinstein. Michael's a veteran entrepreneurial and seasoned marketing executive, as well as a transactional, fractional chief marketing officer for Ideal Living. He's responsible for maximizing marketing and media efforts for DRTV, e-commerce, digital advertising, social media, and Amazon. Previously, Michael was chief marketing officer at All Star Products Group. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, panelists. All right, why don't we jump in and let's start with the first question. All right, so Michael, opening the revenue funnel is a critical aspect of sustainable growth. What tactics do you employ to effectively widen the funnel and maximize revenue opportunities?
Yeah, so at Ideal Living, we own about 15 brands, different strategies for each depending on the audience and the type of products. But in general, TV is still a big driver for us. We're active on TV, and oddly enough, or surprisingly enough, we're really big on the influencer side. And I don't mean like Kim Kardashian or those kind of influencers, but we have curated thousands of influencers specific to our industry niches. So We're in the health and wellness space. We have doctors, hikers, moms that are cooking healthy breakfasts and all of those types, and their audiences are super responsive. So that's been big for us. As far as tactics, I mean, it really all starts with the math from my perspective. So the biggest thing that we have kind of evolved in is rather than just focus on whatever our goal is as a brand or whatever our target break even is, we look at that by channel. We've understood that the TV consumer might react completely different than someone getting driven by influencers or paid social and so forth. So we are really making sure that all our goals are aligned upfront by channel.
So one of the key things you just said, it's you touch the consumer differently, depending channel by channel by channel. So Matt, why don't you talk to us a little about how you touch the consumer and what channels you're using?
Yeah, I mean, I think, echoing kind of what Michael said, a lot of times maybe taking a step back is really the performance analysis and understanding, from do we have a demand problem where we need to fill the funnel? Is there, is it a seasonal period where we need to really capture the sales, and really understanding what levers that we can pull based on kind of the marketplace conditions. I think, echoing kind of what Michael said, not on the influencer side, what we're seeing tactically, social seems to be really growing from a revenue and sales standpoint, and I think that's tied to the social platforms themselves have started to really enhance and integrate e-commerce features, and then really leveraging that channel to engage, because you can have a lot more active engagement with the brands within the social. So those are some of the tactics that worked really well for us. But really for us, it's about starting and pinpointing, based on our objective, based on where we are, what levers do we really need to pull? And if we're going to expand and add a channel to the mix, per se, similar to what Michael was saying, is really understanding the metrics, understanding the KPIs, but also like how is that going to work within the integrated mix? Like what's the value? How is it going to play with our tried and true mix? And really isolating that in an A/B test, typically like within geos, within markets, just to see what that impact is. And so that's how we're playing those levers based on kind of the marketplace conditions and based on our business objectives.
And so interesting, you talked about different geos, there's national versus local. So Racine, I know that you do linear TV, you've built out the whole in-house. So talk a little about that. And do you do national only, do you do local?
So, hi, I'm Racine Levy. Well, I want to say first, I'm so honored to be here on this Women's Council with all these amazing, powerful women. So it's great to be here. Hi. So Racine Levy, we rebranded from Angie's List to Angi, and really used TV to drive that awareness, but also performance during the rebrand. So historically, we were advertising for two brands, Home Advisor and Angie's List, and those were really relying on, basically 100% of our spend was on DR television. But during our rebrand, we saw we really need to kind of open up the funnel. It's not, as advertisers, as marketers and brands, you can't just really look at one marketing, especially across the offline channels. Yes, DR TV performs really well for us. We can go out and buy your tried and true DR networks, Game Show Network, ION, Fox News. We really have to expand that media mix, and that's something we did during the rebrand. And we buy nationally, so really seeing success in linear TV on those channels, but also saw a lot of success within CTV and audio streaming. So now we're in growth mode, and we kind of revised our mix from our rebrand, and we're really relying on TV and audio streaming, finding great success in partners like Amazon Music with Wondery Podcast, and across CTV on Roku, NBC, and CBS. So it's really being able to pivot, as you were talking about, within what your strategy is. And nationally, it's great for us. Unfortunately, local is a little too expensive, but when we do want to test, we do look at a local market test.
And do you do 2 minutes, do you 60s, 30s? What are you primarily
We do
doing?
primarily 15s, 30s. We have some new creatives coming out, really focusing on our homeowners' testimonials, which actually perform really well for us, but also focusing a little bit more on the pro side. The pros really drive the business, and we want to focus that Angi has the best pros in the business that get the jobs done well. So hearing about them and the consumer's journey is really important for us. So the creative, I guess it's always like, I know you made this more of like a creative question, but what drives the media, the creative, or what the media drives the creative, and I think they really need to work together.
Absolutely, totally
Yeah.
aligned. Shannon?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, it's really just taking that holistic approach, looking at it from omni-channel and which channels are driving the best performance and how they interact with each other. Overall, like as far as like tactics, as you were mentioning, you look at all of it, but as an example, like linear TV, everyone knows it's in decline, but it still represents 50%, right? So it's a huge chunk of the consumer target, right? So, but taking that and looking at the cord cutters, which 87% of the consumers out there have at least one CT device. They have an average of 4 different services overall. So it really comes down to not looking at, oh, it's this channel versus that channel, but how you integrate that. And in that example, how you expand that universe by doing both linear and the OTT overall. And then just looking at each of the channels, like some of them, whether it's digital, audio, the podcast, the streaming, email marketing, they all have various benefits overall. So one could be, you might be able to target better. Another one, like email, you could do more personalized. Or with podcast, they're highly engaged audience. So I think it's just looking at that omni-channel from an overall perspective and then incorporating those strategies into your mix.
So I'm obviously a little older than everyone here, but I've been hearing that linear TV has been dead forever. Every one of you is still
Not
using linear
dead.
TV. Right, that's exactly.
It's not dead because we actually switched our strategy this year where we were 26% CTV. Now we decreased that to 6% and increased TV because we see such success across that channel. Obviously, it's a different demo, and I think once we get incremental spend, we'll start expanding again in CTV, but we've just seen really great ROI on TV, especially THOR. You can't beat the pricing. Truly.
That's exactly
Yeah.
it. So let's move to the next question. So, Matt, the marketing funnel is the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and then the bottom of the funnel. Potential reach for obtaining interest and acquiring new customers. The top is more for brand, as we all know, brand exposure. The bottom's for purchasing power. How do you navigate utilizing all three, and what's your secret sauce for customer acquisition?
Yeah, I think not disputing the idea of the funnel by any stretch, but I think it's diving deeper and maybe kind of be a broken record, but just kind of getting into the value of each channel and what it delivers. Exactly what Racine said in terms of a linear TV campaign. The value is much different than search and social, and like how do you pull those levers and how do you play those levers based on, is it a brand product demand standpoint you're trying to do? Is it conversion rates and sales capture? And so really just kind of working those levers based on your business objective, based on having that data intelligence. That's really how we think about it. And being kind of in the DR space or performance space, it really is the idea of just those distinctions of brand versus performance. It's really munging together. And I can't believe I'm going to use this term. It makes me nauseous. But brandformance, it is a thing, and it's really just a matter of like
Buzzy and trendy.
It's buzzy. It's buzzy. Well,
It's a
trendy.
good word to throw around.
Absolutely.
But to me, it's really about just, again, understanding the audience, understanding your channel mix, understanding your business objectives, and just, pulling the right levers at the right time to drive your performance.
And that's key. Michael, I'm going to talk to Michael a little about, Ideal Living. We do Air Doctor. I'm one of their vendor partners, but attribution is key. We're spending X on digital, we're spending X on linear TV. We can't look at things in a silo. We have to look at cross-pollination. So, Michael, want to talk a little about that?
Yeah, I'll add to that. So, and it's funny because, sure, top of funnel, middle, bottom. And,
Sideways.
Yeah, a lot of agencies have almost taken advantage of the fact that we just say, hey, top of funnel, we can't really measure it, so what's your budget? Let's just throw some money. We think it helps. No one on this panel would do that, but I mean like other agencies. And so what we have to do is be disciplined as marketers and make sure that we are, at the end of the day, even though we're focused on a transaction that's coming from the bottom of the funnel, we have to add up all of the spend across all of these parts of the funnel and still make sure that it's paying out if our ultimate goal is ROI. So again, echoing the team here, making sure that we are all aligned on what those goals are going to be out of the gate, and that we're all agreeing that it takes multiple touches, as you talked about before, to make something happen and to get somebody to actually make a purchase.
Totally aligned. Let's go to the next question. So, Shannon, in this rapidly changing landscape of marketing, how do you prioritize between sticking to proven best practices and adopting to new innovative models?
Well, I think the key is, the the proven best practices is at the core of everything that we do, right? So we've tested multiple channels, and it's that test, learn, optimize throughout. And the idea, though, is to always continuously evolve, especially as technology is evolving and there's new platforms, text, different things to test overall. Maintaining that core, but always testing overall. And putting small amounts into various channels to see how they impact, not only from a siloed approach, but how they impact other channels overall, I think it is key. But in this space that we live in, it's all about testing.
It's always
You're
testing.
Testing
It's-
every single variable, and there's a lot of knowledge that's learned, and there's the go-to strategies that we all embrace, but it's continuously adapting and adopting and implementing new strategies to scale brands, performance brands, beyond what they've been able to achieve so far.
And it's making sure that ROI-wise that you're getting a read. Yes, we want to all be frugal. Yes, we want to make sure that we spend the least amount of tests, but we have to be able to be innovative, as you say, and make sure that we're pulling the right levers and making sure that we're spending the right amount of monies. Racine, what are you thinking?
Yeah, testing is key. I kind of go back and forth with this with my C-suite because they're like, I don't understand TV. I was like, that's not for you to worry about. I got it. But the testing is key, and you have to give it enough time. I think that's really important. You can't just test something for 2 weeks, see it's not working, and then shut it off. You really have to give it like a fair test, like 2 months for a CTV test builds up to 6 months to a year. And sometimes that even takes more than a year, 2-3 years to really build that customer. So we saw that with obviously TV is our base, but we built upon in CTV. We really expanded our spend there over the last couple of years. We ran an MMM. We saw that CTV didn't perform as well to CTV, and we actually cut it this year, which I was mentioning. The spend went down to 6%, which as a strategist and a marketer, I don't believe we should have done, but of course we were in growth mode, and I don't think we've given it enough time. We've only been on air in CTV for a couple of years, and I don't think we have the right creative strategy for CTV, and that's something we're working on now. So hopefully we'll implement that back to retest it, but time, testing, and knowing your base, and then layering on top of that, and really understanding what your focus is for that within a given year, quarter, or even a given month.
I agree, and I think just to go beyond that a little bit, it's important to give it enough time, like you said, because you might cut something out that if you would have waited a little bit longer, it could become a viable part of your overall marketing mix. And the other part of it is too, when you're looking at these various channels, how much to spend, right? And it's not so much like trying to get more money, from a marketer or this or that. It's identifying what amount is needed to have a viable test, so you can make informed decisions based upon the data that comes in. But if you go too small, at the conclusion of the test, you're still, you still don't know, should I move forward or not? So I think that's key.
And it doesn't matter the price point of a product. So in other words, in the old days, we saw 1995s all over the place because everyone's going to retail. Retail is dead right now. Everything goes to Amazon, whether you're a $19.95 or a $600 product. Do you test differently? Because you've come from that market. You come from also from the 1995 products to now to the $400 to $500, $600 products.
Yeah, and so right out of the gate, whenever we're going to test, the first thing we do is align on how we define success, right, or what the goals are going to be. So, a more expensive item, which might have fewer orders per week or whatever, we'll have a conversation and say, this particular test we think is going to take us 2 weeks based on the current volume. This other test here is going to take 2 months and so forth. So that's already, that expectation set from the get-go, so there's no surprises later. Why don't we have results, or what don't we know? And the other thing is making sure we're also aligned on what we're actually measuring. Is this a conversion rate test? Is this an average order value? Is this a lifetime value? Those types of things. And then, again, not keeping in mind that you might be testing for conversion, but it might have actually hurt your AOV. So looking at that whole thing in the total package is really what we focus on.
Just very, very key. Let's go to the next slide. So Matt, what are the biggest challenges in performance marketing today? And what tools does your agency use to identify marketing solutions? And how do you communicate these strategies and their effectiveness to internal and external stakeholders? Because that's so important, inside and outside, and making sure that you're one.
Right. I mean, there's obviously a lot there, and I'm sure they'll be brought up of consumer behavior changes, technology advancements and disruptions, first-party data usage, cookie deprecation, all that stuff. But I think the big thing that we're seeing, and again, we're an agency working across brands, is just a missing of the fundamentals. These big ecosystems have been developed, sophisticated ecosystems, and it's kind of creating like a factory-like approach, very transactional. This is my sales target, this is my cost per acquisition target, and with rising competitive and marketplace pressures, just like those costs are going up and sales are going down, like, oh shit, what do we do? And a lot of times it's, again, I'm not technology averse by any stretch, but it's just like, can we tack on a new shiny object? And it's kind of like adding a room to a house with a crumbling foundation. And really, it just comes down to the basics of like, who is your audience? Like, how does your product or service really kind of enable what their needs? Mapping that consumer journey, having the right messaging at each touch point, managing that channel mix, and really leveraging the data intelligence across that that decision-making path, that purchase path, and optimizing accordingly. The other thing that we see, and I'll be interested to hear what you guys say, say Racine, you hear this, is that part of this too is the brands themselves are siloed and specialized, and you have to have that. You have to, there's a digital media team, traditional media team, UX team, call center team, maybe brand team, maybe performance marketing team, but if you don't have an overarching business objective that is a connective tissue across those functions, and also a forum to kind of share the insights across, like you're missing out. It's just really that understanding of like, okay, from our standpoint, we have a client that on a monthly basis we have a forum to share insights of how it's going in each individual functional area. The call center insights of like customers coming in, and this is a service brand that you can't buy online. It's a consultative sale. Those insights in terms of like what's happening, their confusions, the questions they're asking, that flows directly into messaging, that flows directly into the channel mix and how we're working. So that's the point that's really important to us, is that the fundamentals.
It's all about the education.
Yep.
We all know that. It's education, it's the consumer journey, it's acquisition. How many times do we touch? There's always arguments. Do we touch them 4 times? Do we touch them 7 times? Where is the safeguard, says Shannon?
And the 5 to 8 is the average touch points throughout this omni-channel, right? So it's how are we measuring the complexity of the consumer journey? You serve them linear, and then maybe digital, and then maybe retarget through OTT. And I think the biggest challenge is really to be able to measure the impact of that consumer through that journey, and what's the contribution of each one of those channels, and how to measure that so that you can really understand budget allocations and so forth.
So we've seen how important is external partners.
Really important to us, and very similarly to not just saying like which funnel you're focusing on. You can't just focus on one form of measurement, because as I was mentioning, every quarter month could have a different KPI. So for us, it's really important to look at everything. We used MMM to understand our total marketing mix last year, but then we use iSpot to understand attribution and performance within the CTV and TV channel, so what's performing there. We use ArtSci for audio. We're also conducting at the same time a Qualtrics brand health study to understand our lifts and awareness, and we've seen great gains there since the rebrand. I think we're at 26% unaided, 50 above 50 and aided, which is amazing, being that Angie's List is such a home brand since the 90s. And then we're also using different modeling, internal modeling. So it's really important not just to look at one. So for Q1, our focus is always action and ROI. So we're looking at the MMM there and iSpot, but then in Q2, Q3, when we're spending more during seasonality in spring and summer, we have more of a budget and we want to, we have new creative messaging, it's really important to look at our awareness survey and where we've seen ups and downs during awareness times. And then you have these touch points along the way that you can look back and look at this data and what's trended. I don't think we should really be concentrating, again, this kind of is going against my strategy right now, on one focus, because I think it becomes almost too saturated, and then you kind of lose the vision of like the full offline, especially for offline channel. So it'll be interesting to see our results of our new strategy, but I think it may hurt us a little bit. And we may be adding back the channels that we previously tested.
And so you mentioned customer survey, okay?
Yeah.
So how important to all of you are ratings, whether it's Better Business ratings, whether it's a review, how important is that to, make sure the customer's touched well and not just, the old days fake reviews. Now they're obviously real.
Really
right?
important to us, especially the fact that we're letting a stranger into your home
That's
that you
right.
trust, and we want to make sure that these professionals are trusted and they're sourced and vetted, and our customers feel like they are inviting someone to their home. That's their precious, that's the most expensive expense that they're spending money on. So that's really important to us, and we take it really seriously. We have a call center and kind of use those ratings to understand what else is going on behind the scenes.
And Michael, why don't you talk a little, and I'm going to ask another question, but go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, well, going back to the biggest challenge, and it's probably what most of us face, is attribution, and dealing with the fact that it's not even just agencies. There was a time where the TV agency said, look how many orders we got, and the digital agency said, look how many orders we got. Everybody has their orders. You add them all up, and it's 5 times the number of actual orders we really have. And we have that same challenge internally, too. Amazon guy is excited, and the search person's all excited, and everybody's all so proud, and as they should be, but forgetting the fact that it's all contributing together. So, we've adopted wholeheartedly the concept of fractional credit. And so now, depending upon how many touch points and where it is along the consumer journey, we can all participate again in the success and realizing that we're working together. The other thing, this is an interesting challenge. This has been around for a long time, but I suggest everyone, whenever you have a chance, go Google your own product, take a look, and then look in Google Shopping as an example. Go look and see what the landscape looks like, and you'll be amazed at how many ads for your own products are not actually your own ads, whether they're wholesalers that you sent product to and now they're benefiting from the dollars you're spending on advertising, or they're knockoffs and things like that. So that's got to be huge in the mix and top of mind.
And that's, to the point of the brand surveys and maybe the qualitative measurement, I think that's something we've seen, again, as a performance agency, over time, it was all about the quant. It was all about the math of the channels and what it's delivering. But all of the clients we work with, it could be well-established brands that have high awareness, or a challenger brand that's trying to find its niche. Like the need to do both, the need to have an understanding of like your brand health, or like the perceptions of your brand in relation to that performance layer. And those are metrics you don't look at daily, weekly. That takes time. And so I think that establishment of a more robust measurement framework, to bring brand and performance together, is something we've seen in the last 2 years. It's really grown exponentially.
Listen, brand health is key.
Yep.
We all know that. So, we're used to having clients constantly tell us about bad reviews, and what do you do to, reverse that? And it doesn't go away, to your point, in a day, in a week, in a month. It takes years. It takes accountability. It takes satisfying the customer from the moment, the excitement of getting that package, or talking to that person if it's a soft sell. So, absolutely. All right, so Shannon, can we go to the next slide? From the standpoint of a performance agency, how do you enhance audience engagement and ensure that your marketing strategies are fully aligned with the unique preferences and behaviors of performance brands to maximize ROI?
So it's critical, right? We're all trying to find the right audience, right? I think it's important to transcend beyond just the top level demographics, right, and really do a much deeper dive. And the ultimate goal is to find that high intent engagement, right? So that customer that is really going to respond, but identifying them. And it's not just, a broad women, 35 to whatever. And it's really taking a deeper dive into it. So the way that we go about it is we, having an advanced tech stack, right, where we're looking at a household graphs of 117 million households. We have our own proprietary DSP. We augment that with third-party DSPs. And then on top of all that, we have a meta DSP. This really allows us to consume a vast amount of information. We're looking at 14,000 different attributes, 230 million different consumer profiles across 2 billion devices. Having that system in place where you can ingest all that information to make informed decisions on who is that target, where are they consuming that media, what channel are they consuming it within, allows you to really predict those outcomes, to mitigate risk and to provide scale and growth for the performance brands.
Matt, what What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything Shannon said, and I think maybe like a client example. We work with a travel brand. They were, basically you book your excursion. So if you come to Miami, you want to book a fishing trip, you can use their app to plan and manage your excursions. And they were European based, and we launched their brand in the U.S. And it was also coming out of COVID, so that was an interesting time to launch a travel brand, obviously. So there was no first party data to leverage in the States. Given GDPR in Europe, they didn't have much. They were very conservative in terms of the PII and the data that they had. So, they had some research. We did some of our own first party research. And really, to Shannon's point, it was some demographic profiles started to emerge in terms of who would be apt to use the product service, but it was really more about the travel preferences and how they wanted to travel. At that time, again, coming out of COVID, pent-up demand to travel was there, and we all wanted to get out of our houses, but still a little concerned of being in crowds. So outdoor travel, camping, glamping, hiking, all that stuff was really, really massive. And so that was just a really good insight that it was really less about the demographics. We leveraged that to understand the right channels to hit different target sets, whether it's a younger or an older, but really kind of leveraging that. And this being a challenger brand, it was all about being very impactful, leveraging of social events, sweepstakes, video content of use our app for and show us your travel adventure, just really to try to break through the clutter. So again, it's just an example where there was nothing there, and really just to kind of determine travel is not diapers, it's not Medicare insurance, like everybody wants to travel. So we really had to kind of zone in on the travel occasions and how do we make this brand stand out in a marketplace where their budgets did not meet with the big boys. So the dollars really had to go as far as we could.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the next slide. Racine, how have you had to shift from an awareness search, reach to an ROI strategy only? And if so, what KPIs and tools did you use to understand the best performing ROI driving media?
I think I touched on this during the rebrand. We did more of a 60-40 brand performance mix. And this year, we're really 100% performance. We used MMM to understand where TV, CTV, all offline channels fell within the marketing mix. Obviously, you can't have one without the other. So we shifted most of our spend to TV. I actually had to make some phone calls and cancel our upfront broadcast, cancel a lot of CTV, just really to understand growth mode. But because we knew TV really worked and we know that this year is about growth, that's where we shifted to. I think it takes a lot of education, especially when you're working for a brand that's a public brand, educating C-suite why this may be a little bit more expensive, but we've seen with this more reach media, it does perform better in the long run, and there's reach and incremental reach. Adding Unwired, adding the broadcast network. So it's really educating. So right now, switched over to more performance strategy, hope to get back to more of a brand performance strategy, and I guess we'll see what happens over the next year.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, so in a past life, we had the typical progression where it was first ROI focused, then we moved to retail, now we're supporting retail and less about immediate ROI. With Ideal Living, we are very ROI focused. Most of our products are strictly direct to consumer. And so it's the usual KPIs from the response, the calls, the clicks, the conversions, average order, lifetime value, like I mentioned before. We're fortunate enough, like I said, we're in the wellness category. So for the air doctor that we have, our air purifier, we have a huge sort of subscription or recurring business in filters, massive. So that allows us to have some flexibility in terms of an initial customer acquisition, because we know, again, what that's going to look like, and that value's been tremendous for us.
So it's really you're looking at lifetime value, average order value versus average order value from the initial onset to what it looks like 2 years down the road. So, Shannon?
I agree with both of you, and I think the key there is it depends on the brand and what the mission is, right? So you mentioned like shifting a little bit from less ROI to drive retail, and then you've had a model where it was a little bit more brand and there was the mix overall, and you shifted. Without awareness, there is no ROI, right? So I think it's just really looking at what is the mission of that particular brand, service, product, and you got to adapt to it. But ultimately, it's driving performance, and there might be a play where, yeah, there is a higher brand that's seeding the awareness that's affecting the performance of straight ROI channels. So I think it's you just got to look at each one individually and determine what that approach is.
And to your point, every genre is very different, and how you touch that consumer in your genre, how you're touching with Angi versus how he's touching with, Air Doctor or AquaTrue. It's very, very different, and I'm sure, Matt, you see that also.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, maybe another client example that it was a little bit more of a ROI strategy to more of a balanced strategy. Home services category, lawn care specifically, and I can't believe I'm bringing up COVID multiple times, but COVID was really good to this brand. You're kind of stuck in your home. You want your house to look great. You want your lawn to look great. So very much a ROI strategy. Demand was there. 2020, 2021, yeah. We're really
good old days.
The good old
Home
days.
services was killing it. Yeah.
We're really good to the brand, and the challenge as it came to things got back to normal, the media mix models that they were leveraging to gauge demand, performance, channel investment were off. They couldn't really, that unprecedented time, they couldn't really kind of catch up, and there was not data to say that. And it was, marketing teams knew that, analytics teams knew that, but finance with the board, that was hard to kind of sell that in, that no, we need to have a more balanced approach. We had a really bad year. So cut to 2023, really kind of evolving into better integration of all the data points. So basically taking the historical data, taking the media mix model outputs, with macroeconomic data, weather data, which is huge for a lawn care brand, with the current performance data, so past and present, bringing that together, leveraging machine learning models to basically more accurately predict performance, and then also drive insights to where we can optimize accordingly. And obviously, we really moved the needle. But I think that was, we knew we needed to prime the pump. It's like there's a seasonal period, 8 to 10 weeks in the spring, make or break their year. So leveraging mass reach channels as we reached into that seasonal period, and then spring in Atlanta is different than spring in Minneapolis. And so the levers that we're pulling and playing with are different on a geo or a regional level. And so just having a more sophisticated means and leveraging the data intelligence much greater and having a much more balanced approach, saw the dividends. And so really have an understanding of the metrics, while they're more inflated, prior to a seasonal period, knowing that as you get into that seasonal period, it's going to pay the dividends. You're going to see the efficiencies if you prime the market accordingly.
Which is key.
Yep.
You all talked about COVID a little, and we saw clients, Boston brands, number one, artificial Christmas tree where everyone was staying home. They wanted to be happy. We sold more Christmas trees in a year and a half than we sold 10 years before. And then, unfortunately, we saw the fall off because everyone had ordered the trees. So it was interesting to hear different aspects with COVID and how COVID affected. I mean, another big client is Medicare Advantage, and life business, and everyone panicked because they didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So we sold more policy than ever. So it was very interesting. Let's go to the last slide. So why don't we start, Michael? What trends will impact performance marketing moving forward? So, we're going to talk about leveraging data. We're going to talk about design thinking, which is very, very important. And obviously, we're going to touch upon AI, and we'll talk a little about that at the end.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take the AI piece first. And I know we're going to have other panels, so I won't go too deep. But I think for us, one thing we've learned over the last year especially is the most important thing related to AI are the questions that you feed it, and that skill that the people who are taking advantage of these new technologies that we have has to really be kind of harnessed and taught. I'm even seeing it now, like in colleges, they're actually teaching courses, not just traditional AI and what is it, but how do you talk to it? What is the way you word the question, the way you feed it really dictates what that answer is going to be, whether it's for copy on a website or trying to understand analytics and how things are going. So that's probably the most important thing. Beyond that, again, for us, it's always just balancing testing without doing too much testing. We've had that whole problem too, where we're testing 20 different platforms to always have the latest and greatest, and everything's broken, as you might know. So, so kind of, as I mentioned before, really having the discipline to get excited about something, but also put together a plan with timelines, strategies, and goals, and then learn based on each knowledge and each learning that we have, leverage that rather than try to do everything at once.
So Racine, how are you leveraging data?
We're leveraging data every day, but I just want to talk on the AI piece. Like, everyone's so nervous about AI, and I know there's a panel, but yeah, you can use AI to get your baseline story, but it's really about the people that are repping your brands from the agency side, the people that are working internally to tell that story. So I think that's important. Like, great, you can chat GPT these questions. I did that, and I was like, these are great generic answers, but you really need those people who are the masters. So I think that's really important. It's like the people who understand performance media, the people who've worked for 10 plus years in this media industry and understand what they tested on other brands and how it works, and really trusting your team, your agency that you're working with, that they kind of know what's right for your KPIs. And then in terms of data, just constantly using different data points along the way, attribution, MMM, media consumption through Nielsen, just to pivot up to your strategy. That's what we're looking at every day at Angi.
And AI is used very differently. Every organization, that's the key buzzword. Just like when digital is the key buzzword, AI is the key buzzword. So I'll give you a quick example. I do a lot of integrations. We did an integration with Colonial Penn, and mistakenly, the talent spoke the wrong 800 number. So it was 800-289-1234. And so literally, it was supposed to be 288. And we're talking a very expensive integration. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands. And what we did at our production house is we literally, because he had said the word 8 before, and it matched how his lips met, and we used AI to be able to do it. So there's all different kind of, ways of using AI. People are thinking top level. We need to start at the basement and work our way up. So, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, quickly on the AI front, I think for us, like, within analytics and how we, leverage the data, machine learning, that's been part of what we've done forever. I think the next step of that is like you're gleaning these insights and then using the generative AI for creative versioning, messaging, just really expediting our ability to kind of get in market with the right message. That's been massive. I think the other thing, it's not really a trend, but like what I'm really fascinated to see over the course of the next couple of years is, it's AI, but also like even augmented reality and what impact that has in terms of like how people are looking for information on products and services. The Google Vision Pro, you guys have seen those, the headsets. It's kind of clunky, really pricey, but Apple obviously has a really good track record of, developing products that you don't think you need until you need them. Like the watch, I just kind of succumbed to that. But really, like within that, like having immersive experiences, with a product or service, more seamless transaction capabilities. Like, what is search marketing in a couple of years? Like, what are the steps people are taking to kind of, find information about products and services, and how does that translate? So that to me is going to be really fascinating to see, and it's always evolving. But I think we're at the tipping point right now of like in the next couple of years, there's going to be some massive change.
One of the interesting things you said was about versioning, and so some of my marketing friends are now using for versioning for international. So they'll take something instead of dubbing over it, and because they haven't done it originally, whether it's in common, UK English, whether it's Australian, whether it's Germany, whether it's France, they're now using AI to take that talent, to take selling that product, and having the voice, and it matches up the lips, everything, and they're using AI to be language barrier, language positive.
I think he hit upon most of it from an AI perspective. Overall, I love it, embrace it. I think it's a huge part already of the decision-making process. You can predict consumer behavior. It helps with optimizing the budgets, and obviously there's so much data that it can process and help you make better decisions overall. I just think it's an exciting time to be part of this technology overall.
So as we're finishing 2024 in a couple of months, we're going into 2025. Thinking out of the box, what are we thinking, Michael?
A lot of it has to do, again, on maximizing everything you learned the prior year. That's something I think we lose sight of sometimes. We're just so excited for the next new thing. But meanwhile, we just learned something huge. We had some great, win, and then we just kind of let that go and don't capitalize it. So For us, I won't call it necessarily like a new technology or something like that, but I will say we've kind of met, huddled, and all agreed that we're going to spend a lot of time focusing on celebrating the wins and then figuring out how to build off of them.
And I think it's key. To me, there's no failure. We talk about test, and testing. It's so key to learn from tests that don't succeed as well as something else. That doesn't mean it's a failure. You're learning, you're being educated, and that way you can take that education on to the consumer. Racine?
I think we just had to go back to the basics. I think we're so involved in the day-to-day, and obviously the data drives the business, but why did we all start in this industry? We love advertising, we're marketers. We want to understand the consumer's journey and like how they feel about your brand. So using that data is really the most important, and not just making it so complicated. I know it's not just black and white, but I feel like sometimes we get so lost in the mishmash of everything that we just got to go back to, the basics of really, me having the right creative and kind of and working that with your media and understanding your customers and your clients' goals. So going back to the basics is
Totally
huge
agree
for
with you.
me.
What's old is news now. Look, direct mail has never been as prevalent as it is now. Postcarding, retargeting. I do a lot of older market with Medicare Advantage, and we're postcarding, to death for retargeting, and it's a home run. The consumer's loving it, the 65 plus age. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, similarly, I think, yeah, it's kind of fundamentals, always kind of, focus there, and then just, keeping it, an eye on how, what's trending and really building on your successes. I think, Michael mentioned influencer market earlier. We work with a lot of services brand, at the time when that started to get traction, it didn't seem like it made a lot of sense, but there's, a tipping point. So, we're delving into that a lot more and seeing kind of that authenticity and relevance with an influencer and their followers works really well. So I think social commerce is going to grow. Obviously cookie deprecation in the digital space is, that's been 3-4 years talk about that, but just better leveraging of first-party data and alternative means to that. We're not really scared with the cookie deprecation. It's not great today, and I think this is just going to be an innovation in terms of better usage of your data in the marketplace.
I've heard pros and cons. About, but they've been talking about it for the last 3 years.
Yep.
So it's to the point where you're either ready or you're not ready.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Shannon?
I just think looking at, one of the challenges out there that you see a lot is there's multiple agencies that are buying across the channels. So you have that data that's siloed. I think it's a big problem overall. And to be able to integrate that, to actually have one team that's looking at it, to actually understand the contribution of each one of those channels, and to have those conversations within a dashboard that guides everything from where to allocate the budget. I think that's a key component, and then tracking that through the consumer journey overall with the multi-touch, using multiple versions of that, whether it's a Markov, a Shapley, a U-shape, even last click, triangulating all of that to truly validate what those outputs are, so you can really define what that next step should be.
Absolutely. Why don't we open up the questions to the audience?
Here you go.
So, Racine, I loved what you just said about getting back to the basics. About that, and it really, I think, what problem are you solving, right? That's kind of what it really starts with. But I really have a question for Michael, because I watched the interview you guys did. Helen, amazing job, and you had some advantages of COVID with the air doctor. But my question is, hold influencer to the same KPIs, allowables as you do your other channels, and how do you get great attribution there? Because I think influencer is one of the toughest things to get attribution for.
Yeah, great question. And so yeah, everyone's, regardless of the channel, everyone's held to the same standard, to the same KPIs. But that being said, we will offer the opportunity for certain influencers or others to have a better price, a better deal, so that they're giving something special to their audience, which I think is important. Everybody can't just be advertising exactly the same thing. I mean, that's why home shopping, they want colors or something. There's got to be something unique there. But at the end of the day, ROI is ROI for us. So the thing that's challenging is a lot of the influencers, we'll give them specific links and anything that we can do to help track but their audience is their audience. So they won't always get the credit they deserve because their audience goes to Amazon and things like that. So we will study that and then work a way to give sort of that additional credit, or we'll increase a payout, for example, to an influencer, because we know they're driving other channels and we want to keep them happy and, you know, maximize that. I mean, as directionally as you can. Sure, exactly.
Hi, thank you, panel. That was a great session. Hasib Omar from Amazon Ads. Question for Racine. I'm just really curious, as you sort of have some budget in both places across linear and streaming, whether there's variation in creatives that you use by channel?
I think we'd get to a point there. Right now, there's not. I think we do need to have more of a CTV, social creative for CTV, and like our tried and true DR creative testimonial for TV, but we're not, and that's something I'm talking about daily with my CMO. I just don't think we're there yet, but I think that's important. I mean, that's a lot of what a lot of brands are doing right now, so, yeah.
Anyone else? You got them right here.
Hi guys, I work in a outcomes-based programmatic platform, and in one word I think someone said in the last panel was fraud, right? And I think in some ways not everyone's fully programmatic here, maybe seeing it to that extent, but the ANA put out there, there's the ANA, the Association of National Advertisers, no more acronyms, they put out there that there's been $22 billion of ad fraud. You talked about AI. How do you think that's going to affect ad fraud in the future?
I didn't get a lot of that, Matt. I apologize. I don't need the microphone. Actually, yeah. Just give that again.
I didn't understand it. What were you asking about? AI?
Oh, fraud.
Fraud,
Oh,
yeah.
fraud.
How AI is
Yeah, I mean, we're not doing a ton in the CTV space yet. I'm hoping that's going to change. And from our perspective, again, ROI driven, we're hoping soon the rates are in the CTV world are going to make sense for us. So I don't have a lot of thoughts yet around the CTV topic, but the fraud question in general is rampant. It's everywhere. And the challenge we're probably going to face is as much progress as we're going to make on catching the fraud thing, utilizing AI tactics, the fraudsters are probably going to figure out how to use AI as well to expand. So we're going to have to deal with that. So I'm hoping in a few months we can turn that question back to you and your agency, and then you'll tell us that answer. Yeah.
You're always selling, Matt.
Nobody wants to ask Racine what Mishigash means?
Oh, we got, or was that just a stretch? All right.
Hey, how you all doing? My name is Mark Amici. I'm with PS Promotions. We're the largest in the 10-second TV advertising category. Fern knows of us, several other advertisers do. I don't know if you ever realize that a lot of times you see closed captioning provided by, promotional fee paid by, and then there's a 10-second spot that follows, which is almost unbelievably perfect placement inside a lot of the most well-known shows on television. And pretty much everybody up there is not really considering them at the moment, I don't think. So with all the branding and the top of funnel and the mixtures that you're doing, my hope that would be, if you can in the future, think about adding some of these 10s as a low CPM thing in a perfect placement to help the rest of your funnels. So
We actually did a 10 with Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy through Sony. We had unfortunately we couldn't really track performance, but we did see that helped, of course, with reach and awareness during that time. I don't know, Joe, what'd you sell me? over there. 10, a 10. A 10 tacked to a 15 or something? Yeah, I don't know. I thought it did help during those awareness periods.
All right. All right. Well, how about a round of applause for our great group here?